Welcome to the Full Moon Film Buff, episode 210. We're going to discuss Neowolf, released in 2010. I watched this on Fossum. I had not seen this before. As always, we start with the prominent crew and cast. You can always find links to a more complete credit list in the show notes. The film was directed by Ivan Gauthier, billed as Alan Smithee, and you bet we will talk about that. Written by Alessandro Di Gaetano and Michael January. Special effects makeups was by Bruce Barlow and Kazuyuki Okada. Ivan Gauthier is a French director, producer, and editor who has worked extensively in both European and Hollywood productions. Major credits include directing LA I Hate You and producing higher profile titles like The Comeback Trail, The Poison Rose, and Running with the Devil. Alessandro Di Gaetano also wrote Project Metal Beast. Michael January has credits on titles like Warpath, Deadly Target, and Firepower. Neowolf was his last project. Bruce Barlow is a veteran special effects makeup artist, creature designer, and occasional actor with decades of experience in practical horror and sci-fi effects. His filmography includes creature and prosthetic work on films like Leviathan, Virtuosity, From Beyond, and many, many others. He excels at building tangible monsters in suits, exactly the kind of hands-on talent werewolf movie fans love to hear about. Kazuyuki Okada is a makeup and special effects artist known for his work on major studio productions. His credits include Day Shift, Malignant, and Legend of the Sasquatch, among others. He contributes high-level prosthetic, creature, and makeup effects work in contemporary action horror and genre films. The cast includes Michael Frascino as Tony, Heidi Johanningmeyer as Rosemary, Agam Kaba as Vince, Veronica Cartwright as Mrs. Belikov, Ryan Ross as Kevin, Megan Pepin as Paula, Sevi Dixion as Professor Sebastian. Michael Frascino had 4 acting credits, including Neowolf. Heidi Johanningmeyer is recognized for strong supporting roles across film and television. She has appeared in films such as 100 Days to Live, The Last Summer, One Small Hitch, and The Dilemma, as well as in recurring roles on series such as Somebody Somewhere, Chicago PD, and Proven Innocent. Agam Kaba was a star collegiate soccer player and model before beginning his long-running role as Aaron Snyder on the soap opera As the World Turns. Veronica Cartwright has a remarkable career spanning over 6 decades in film, television, and theater. She began acting as a child, appearing in early roles such as The Children's Hour, Spencer's Mountain, and most memorably as Kathy Brenner in Alfred Hitchcock's classic The Birds. As a teenager, she played Jemima Boone in the first 2 seasons of the popular 60s Western series Daniel Boone. She delivered unforgettable supporting performances in iconic genre films, including Nancy Belasek in Invasion of the Body Snatchers and the anxious navigator Lambert in Alien. Other standout credits include The Right Stuff as Betty Grissom, Flight of the Navigator, The Witches of Eastwick, Candyman, Farewell to the Flesh, and later horror entries like The Town That Dreaded Sundown. Television highlights include recurring roles on LA Law, guest turns on ER and The X-Files, plus appearances in Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, Bosch, and many, many more. Her sister is the well-known actress Angela Cartwright. Ryan Ross started with a guest appearance on the soap Guiding Light. An additional credit is the horror film Frat House Massacre. Megan Pippin is a former professional ballerina with the New York City Ballet. She is recognized for dance-heavy roles in center stage and has appeared in When Will I Be Loved? According to my sources, Sevi Dixion is a Venezuelan actor and voice performer who has worked in both English and Spanish language projects. His film credits include Haunted Forest and Curse of the Undead. He has lent his voice to video games like Call of Duty Ghosts and Uncharted 4. Neowolf wastes no time throwing us into the horror. A sleazy parking lot hookup gets violently interrupted by a very hairy, very hungry creature. Tony returns to his old college town, hoping to win back his girlfriend, Rosemary. A pair of werewolves kill 2 rock band rejects in broad daylight. Tony woos Rosemary with an original song that also draws the attention of the mysterious band Neowolf, led by bad boy Vince. Neowolf recruits Tony. This band doesn't just play loud music. They're werewolves using the rock scene as hunting ground and cover. Rosemary notices Tony is acting differently and begins digging into clues, helped by her eclectic studies in Gothic literature and botany. Best friend Kevin ends up dead after partying with the band. Rosemary gets help from old Mrs. Belikov to rescue Tony and put an end to Neowolf. Tony has to embrace the inner wolf to kill Vince, forcing Rosemary to kill Tony in the end. The film is a mix of seduction, jealousy, bloody attacks, and Tony being pulled between the girl he loves and the intoxicating pull of a band's lifestyle. It's a straightforward rock band with a monstrous secret premise, blending music, scene vibes, relationship drama, and classic lycanthrope temptation. On paper, this concept is pure B-movie gold. A touring pack of werewolves disguised as a metal band seducing an aspiring musician while leaving a trail of bodies. The film delivers some sleazy early attacks and a few solid practical gore moments, but ultimately feels like the total is less than the sum of its parts. Neowolf tries to give us a mix of old school practical work and early 2010s digital effects. On the positive side, the film leans into the practical makeup and gore from many of the close werewolf moments and attack scenes. You get prosthetic fangs, claws, and hairy facial appliances that give the creatures a tangible grindhouse-style presence. Some of the bite wounds, claw rips, and bloody aftermath look convincingly messy. The early parking lot kill and a few later maulings benefit the most from this hands-on approach. The wolfed-out look on Vince and the seductive supergroupie Paula has a sleazy, predatory Eurotrash rock star energy that fits the touring band concept perfectly. It's the kind of scruffy physical monster work that still delivers. Unfortunately, when the film goes for fuller reveals or wider shots, it switches to CGI, and that's where things show their age. The full-body werewolf designs often look a bit weightless with that classic early 2010s digital fur syndrome. And for transformation scenes, don't expect much. There really aren't any big, drawn-out, bone-cracking transformations here. The change is mostly handled through quick cuts, CGI morphing faces, and partial makeup reveals. Tony's gradual shift relies more on a performance and some subtle makeup progression than a full agonizing metamorphosis. Overall, the werewolf looks land somewhere between pretty cool in the shadows and close-ups and a little dated when they go full beast. For a low-budget rock band werewolf flick, there is enough hairy-fanged goodness here to keep me entertained. Barely. One of the things I always love when I dig into one of these low-budget lichen flicks is how they handle the actual werewolf lore. Neowolf keeps things pretty straightforward and rooted in the core traditional rules, but it adds a couple modern wrinkles that fit the rock band premise. The transmission by bites is the main way that the curse spreads. The pack treats lycanthropy like a seductive upgrade. Power, freedom, and the intoxicating rock star lifestyle all rolled into one dangerous package. There's a strong emphasis on Tony's internal struggle. He is torn between the pull of the beast and his love for Rosemary and his remaining humanity. The movie also nods to the classic lycanthropic weaknesses. Silver shows up as the go-to weapon, and Wolfsbane gets referenced heavily through Rosemary's studies and her partnership with Mrs. Belikov. The pack is portrayed as a tight-knit, predatory group traveling from town to town. Where Neowolf adds its own wrinkles is in the lifestyle angle. These aren't lone, cursed souls howling at the full moon in the woods. They're a touring rock band using sex, drugs, and rock and roll as the perfect camouflage to hunt unsuspecting groupies. The curse feels like a voluntary dark side of fame upgrade, with a clear hierarchy and Vince as the charismatic alpha. It's less about an uncontrollable rage and more about temptation and choice. Do you embrace the beast for power and the spotlight, or fight to hold on to your humanity? It doesn't reinvent the wheel, but it gives the lore a sleazy early 2010s indie horror spin that suits the seductive monster musicians concept perfectly. One of the funniest things about Neowolf is how embarrassed the director seemed to be with the final product. Ivan Gauthier was so unhappy that he had his name removed and used the official pseudonym Alan Smythe, which I will go into detail about soon. As for similar films, Neowolf sits in that little fun subgenre of rock band with a monstrous secret. It scratches a similar itch to Monster Dog, starring Alice Cooper, Lone Wolf, and Hard Rock Nightmare. I've heard that The Werewolf of Woodstock from 1975 has some similar vibes, but I just have not yet been able to find a way to watch that. If you have a lead on The Werewolf of Woodstock, please let me know. I cannot be 100% certain, but I think this is the first mention of Google in a werewolf movie. The biggest flaw in the movie is the time that is wasted on the music. It's not that the song is bad, it's that we hear Tony's entire song for Rosemary played 3 times. Acoustic when he first plays it for her, then electric when the band tries it out, and then we hear it again at the concert. Each time we hear the whole song, beginning to end. That's over 15% of the film's total runtime. So let's talk about Werewolf Pack as rock band. One of Neowolf's most entertaining conceits is reimagining the classic Werewolf Pack as a sleek touring rock band that uses the sex, drugs, and rock and roll lifestyle as their camouflage. Instead of solitary woodland monsters or isolated loners, these Eastern European lycanthropes hide in plain sight on the indie circuit. Nocturnal habits, feral stage shows, and occasional disappearances barely raise eyebrows in a scene that already romanticizes this kind of excess. Led by the charismatic Alpha Vince, the band Neowolf rolls into town like a predatory machine. Groupies serve as both seductive lures and enforcers, while late-night gigs and after-parties provide cover for their feeding. The band blends traditional werewolf pack dynamics with some vampire-like seduction. It feels sometimes a little closer to the Lost Boys than a Fur and Fangs classic. Their rock performances allow them to be openly loud and feral without raising suspicion, updating the seductive group aesthetic of the Lost Boys with the rock star werewolf energy of Alice Cooper's Monster Dog. This setup reframes the genre's core internal struggle as temptation versus humanity, as the dark side of fame and the road. Tony, an aspiring musician trying to reconnect with his girlfriend Rosemary, is recruited as the replacement guitarist after the previous member is disposed of. The band offers brotherhood, power, creative validation, groupies, and hedonism, but it demands a kill to seal the membership. Loyalty is enforced through blood, seduction, and a shared violence, rather than pure lunar instinct. The infection itself is not a random curse. Super groupie Paula, acting on Vince's orders, turns Tony in a haze of lust and ambition. This seductive, consensual bite contrasts sharply with traditional lore, where the werewolf transformation is usually unwanted and is violently imposed upon the victim. Tony actively courts the encounter, chasing the upgrade of rock stardom, even as he senses the cost and has to decide if he's willing to pay it. The full moon here isn't just in the sky, it's the stage lights and the predatory promise of immortality through fame. Now, the film builds to a tragic climax worthy of numerous werewolf films. Two greats that jump to mind include An American Werewolf in London and the 2010 remake of The Wolfman. Tony, fully aware of the monster he is becoming, forces Rosemary to shoot him rather than completely embrace the beast and become a killer. It's a heartbreaking act of love and the ultimate rejection of the creature within. In Neowolf, the real moon isn't in the sky. It's the stage lights and the predatory promise of rock and roll immortality that can turn even well-intentioned artists into pack predators. For lycanthrope fans, Neowolf's rock band pack do make it a memorable, if uneven, entry. The production troubles that earned it the Alan Smithee credit undercut its ambition. But the thematic core holds. Some of the most dangerous werewolves aren't in the woods. They're headlining in a downtown club, offering freedom and brotherhood at the price of your soul. The film reminds us why werewolf stories endure. They're about the choices we make when something primal whispers that we could have it all. So now let's talk a little about Rosemary. In a subgenre often centered on tormented male protagonists, and we have one here, Neowolf offers a strong counterpoint in Rosemary, a smart, proactive heroine who updates the final girl archetype with brains, botanical expertise, and gothic literary knowledge. While Tony is drawn into the Neowolf pack's seductive rock star lifestyle, Rosemary becomes the voice of reason, an investigator, and the defender of humanity. Her studies provide the perfect toolkit. Her Gothic literature class gives her the mythological framework to identify the supernatural threat when Tony's behavior changes. Her botany classes provide unexpectedly practical advice against werewolves. After her friend Kevin is killed and clues point towards the touring band, she launches into full researcher mode, cross-referencing tour dates with local murders and building a case with classic smart heroine montage energy. Rosemary's key alliance with Mrs. Belikov, a nursery owner and self-described crazy old loon who cultivates wolfsbane and holds occult-adjacent knowledge of the ancient evil. Together they form a mini-hunter team, melting silverware into bullets and discussing traditional countermeasures. While wolfsbane plays a supporting role, the film's emphasis on research and preparation is refreshing in modern creature features, which ground the story in a genre tradition. This positions Rosemary in sharp contrast to the pack's temptations. She embodies grounded love, intellectual resistance, and active defiance rather than passive victimhood. She doesn't need to be rescued. She investigates, forms an alliance, and confronts the monsters herself. Her arc culminates in the tragic climax, where Tony forces her to shoot him, affirming her strength as the survivor who must carry on. I do need to add a production context note. Unfortunately, the film's producers did the actress playing Rosemary, Heidi Johanningmeyer, dirty by hiring a body double for a sex scene that she refused to shoot, then failing to disclose that substitution in the credits. This left audiences assuming that Heidi had performed the scene herself, undermining the integrity of her performance and the character's dignity in a film already packed with sleazy exploitation elements. In the temptation-filled world of rock band werewolves, Rosemary anchors the film with intelligence and heart. She proves that the most powerful weapon against the beast is a sharp mind and the will to protect what remains of humanity, elevating Neowolf with a thoughtful female lead, even amid its production flaws and exploitative behind-the-scenes decisions. Finally, I want to talk about Alan Smithee, Hollywood's shadow director and the ultimate disavowal. Now, Alan Smithee is not a real person. It's an official pseudonym created by the Directors Guild of America in 1968 for directors who wish to disown a project that they no longer recognize as their own. The name became Hollywood shorthand for serious behind-the-scenes trouble, studio interference, heavy re-edits, producer meddling, or creative clashes that compromised the final product. The pseudonym originated with a Western that came out in 1969 called Death of a Gunfighter. Directors Robert Totten and Don Siegel both walked away after conflicts with star Richard Widmark and a studio demands. The DGA needed a neutral credit solution and coined Alan Smithee. Sometimes the name is spelled A-L-L-E-N. Distinctive enough to avoid real filmmakers, with the extra EE on the end for added uniqueness. Directors had to petition the Guild and prove substantial loss of control before they could use the credit, and then they had to remain publicly silent. The credit appeared on dozens of films across genres, from David Lynch's extended TV cut of Dune in 1984 to horror titles like William Lustig's Maniac Cop 3 in 93 and Kevin Yeager's Hellraiser Bloodline in 96. In Neowolf, director Ivan Gauthier disowned the final cut due to production troubles, uneven pacing, awkward dialogue, and compromised execution, resulting in the Smithee credit, with inconsistent DV spellings like Alan Smith or Alan Smythe adding to the chaos. For horror fans, a Smithee credit on a low-budget creature feature like Neowolf often signals exactly the kind of interference that can ruin practical effects, transformation sequences, consistent lore, or thematic depth. What might have been a sharper rock-werewolf hybrid blending seductive pack dynamics with fame's temptations ends up feeling pretty disjointed. You can sense the bones of a much stronger film beneath this mess, much like a werewolf struggling for control under external pressures. The pseudonym's ironic name came to an end with the 1997 meta-comedy and Alan Smithee film Burn, Hollywood, Burn, where the title character tries to disown his own work, but can't, because the only allowed pseudonym is his own actual name. Real director Arthur Hiller also removed his name from that movie, making Alan Smithee the credited director of a film mocking the system. The flop drew mainstream attention to the alias, leading to the DGA to retiring the name around 2000. Later projects would use alternatives like Thomas Lee. Beyond the gossip, Alan Smithee highlights an enduring truth about filmmaking, the tension between artistic vision and commercial realities, and the often combative nature of the industry. In genre cinema, especially horror and werewolf stories, strong directorial control often separates memorable creature features with impactful practical effects from compromised messes. Even today, the name remains cultural shorthand for creators distancing themselves from flawed work. For Neowolf, it explains why a promising concept about rock band lycanthropes feels like it was bitten by too many producers, yet still offers just enough thematic bite for fans to appreciate what it tried to do. So, bottom line on Neowolf, if you're a diehard lycanthrope fan like me, and the idea of a sleazy touring werewolf rock band sounds like B-movie catnip, then yeah, I say give this a spin. It's got some scruffy charm, some legitimately fun practical makeup and gore in the attack scenes, and enough hairy-fanged moments to keep the werewolf heart satisfied. The whole seductive monster musician's premise is a guilty pleasure territory. That said, this will not blow you away. The CGI is dated, the pacing drags in the middle with the relationship stuff. You roll your eyes the third time they launch into the song. And it never quite reaches the wild rocking heights that you wish a werewolf band movie would hit. It's aggressively mediocre. Watchable once, especially if you're already deep in the werewolf woods with me, but probably not one that you're going to be quoting or rewatching. If you're new to low-budget lycan flicks, or you're expecting something on the level of the classics, skip it, or at least go in with very low expectations. So, if you like lycanthropes, like, share, and subscribe. Contribute your thoughts and additional observations in the comments below. Let me know what I missed, or if you noticed something different. Next, I plan to discuss Monster Brawl from 2011. Keep your eye on the moon, the silver bullet in the chamber, and we'll see you back here next episode.